Bismillah, I was saying, because I have strong mental physical features. And I'm born and raised in the United States. I'm a generation of slave descendants from my mother's side. My father's side were free people. So I'm despised by our own ethnic group to the point where it's even almost impossible for me to marry. But it is strange, and I leave it to investigation of the website, muslima.com, um, why I get no responses. When I was in Singapore, or before I was heavily targeted by investigation, before it got really worse, if I joined any matrimonial service or whatever, Muslim matrimonial, marriage, nikah, whatever, I would get like every day 3 to 5 new responses. At the worst, maybe 2 a day, 2 or 3. Let's say an average of 2 or 3 new responses a day or every other day. 2 or 3 more different people. Now I get nothing. So what I believe is I was target of a very intense program. A research is how can I say it? Reincarnation of a J. Edgar Hoover, sort of a targeting that this person is to have. We don't want this person to have nothing. He married. He wasn't dedicated to Megan Harrison, who's Celtic ancestry. That's what really pissed people off in the law enforcement intelligence apparatus. He's married to Megan Harrison. He hasn't done nothing for her, and she's Celtic, Irish ancestry, Canadian citizen, born and raised Canada, but Irish ancestry. They really hated that. Then, in addition, then he wants to marry women abroad, or he wants to live in Singapore. Singapore didn't know about his Canadian relationship and him leaving a child or whatever. But Singapore, thankfully, the intelligence people here, State Department and others who would have the anti-Afro bias, they would say, thankfully, Singapore has an anti-Afro ethnic bias, which is anti-Afro, mostly cultivated by the British. Because for a long time, they would raise, as long as I was in the region, or even the threat of me being in that region, they would raise up alerts and alarms against Nigerians and blacks. For a little while, I watched black men, this, that. But now, since it is clearly breather, the heat, what they said, the smoke is clear, and the heat, the furnace is now down, and it's clear that I'm not able to ever go back or travel anywhere. Now, at this point in junction, now there's no longer any threat. Now, yeah, there's no longer any threat now. So right now, all alerts are gone, and Nigerians are back in business throughout Southeast Asia. So, what I wanted to explain to you, with all due intellect, and what you're seeing is a fraction. As I told you, I supported a fast track program where if people were targets of disdain and dislike by a governing society, they could have a program where they would give us nothing. And now, if you are of healthy age and cognizant and clear-minded, lucid thinking, they would give you a vehicle and you could go do deliveries, but only for companies that use similar to what they're fighting against in the port with the union right now for independent contractors, owner operators, but on a smaller scale. You would be an independent contractor of a fuel-efficient 4-cylinder minivan or cargo van or vehicle to do deliveries commensurate with something that would leave, and you would always calculate what would leave you more than enough in your pocket to survive. Not only to survive, but actually to make progress. And you would want in your pocket per day, minimum 100 to 150 US dollars a day. 6 days a week, if possible, in your pocket. Not 5 days a week. 5 days a week is not sufficient. 6 days a week. Ideally, after one shift, 150 US dollars to $200 in your pocket for one shift. Then you can do some in the afternoons and in the evenings in the same vehicle. And then if you're homeless like myself, you could sleep in the van. You could have a sleeping bag, and you could have a power unit to plug into the vehicle, a power unit to plug in the vehicle, and then have a small microwave to heat up. Or if you have a religious center or a church or whatever you go to, if you have a synagogue, a church, or a religious mosque, a masjid, a religious center you go to, you could use the kitchen there to heat up your things, clean after yourself, and then leave and take the stuff to your vehicle. if you cannot use a shower of your religious center, or if it's not hygienic, because some showers and some mosques are gathering cobwebs, and daddy long legs and other types of spiders, because the communities that build mosques are generally family-oriented communities. They're tribal-oriented. They will not let each other fall down into the humiliation of being homeless the way Afro-Americans. And they will not let each other be unmarried in what they call spinsters in English, British influenced culture. They call it spinsters for women. They would not let each other be unmarried for such a prolonged period of time as Afro-Americans let each other be unmarried. They wouldn't let each other do that. So much so that my protest, which will be confounded by other videos, when I was recently thrown out of the CARE, the Committee for American Islamic Relations gathering, this Saturday, I was thrown out. I had that on video. It's the first video that it was 20-something minutes of the guard speaking to me. He thought I was talking to myself, the way it looks like I'm talking to myself now, because I don't have a Bluetooth headpiece like the Look-See or the other unit. Like you see me talking to one Mexican or Colombian woman that owns a check cashing place. She said, "Is that a Look-See? You got to take it off." Meaning what? Actually, she's of that pair in San Francisco on Mission Street. She's of a fair complexion. A lot of those people connected with drugs. They open up those businesses, major businesses, licensing, payment to the state comptroller or financial board, all that kind of stuff. That's what drug money. Not always, but sometimes if they have a meet your kind type of complexion, that's what dope money. So she didn't want that Look-See operating and looking around her business seeing anything. She said, "You gotta take that off." So the discrete video is very important. I don't have a Look-See, and I have no one to help me get photojournalistic equipment like a Look-See and other things. You should have saw the decadence in this place. Committee for American and Islamic Relations, and there are people who are allowed to have a closed door session with the panelists or with the speakers before the actual forum is given. There are people who have a closed door session with the panelists and speakers, and things like that, even before it's done. Those are special contributors. I mean, one young man who was of the European ancestry, I lost all of that video, man. It's like as if there was a power that reached into my device. Maybe it was the power of the creator, but at least it had its permission. All that video was lost, and it was a whitish complexion young man, very fair, red hair looking young man, probably Palestinian or Syrian. The highest occurrence of red hair occurs in Syria and Palestine, Lebanon, but mostly in Syria. A reddish colored hair young man who told me, "Yeah, my parents are in now. They're in with the speakers, with the presenters, the guests, meaning Glenn Greenwald, Imam Siraj Wahaj. They're inside there with them before." So those people are that's the extreme pinnacle of the wealthy who contribute their care. They'll write a check for like 100, 200, 300,000, $50,000 right on the spot. Okay, that's how much money these people have. But people like myself who are practicing Muslims, who are trying to be practicing Muslims, and who have been tormented with being labeled terrorists by bigots, meaning what? Who have been tormented with being labeled terrorists by bigots within the Muslim community who don't like the ascendancy. They don't like the financial growth of Afro-ethnic males or females, but the males especially, as well as bigots within the intelligence, who then contact bigots within the law enforcement establishment. Because the intelligence establishment has feelers and friends within the law enforcement. And the law enforcement won't question the intelligence establishment because they're also vetted people. They've been around 20, 30 years, 15 years, or they're just from MI6 or just from the FBI or from the CIA. And that's to law enforcement, to local law enforcement, the world of intelligence is very interesting. They've never been invited to the table to really know what's going on. So telling someone that there's a threat in your community amongst you, watch him, grab him, or do this, or be right behind him in his neck. Local law enforcement feels like we're being brought in on the table. We're finally knowing what's going on. And they're not going to turn on an opportunity, and it brings more heat because local law enforcement has more power to detain, to search, to do things over a regular citizen, where we almost have very little to no rights. Bar having legal counsel always waiting on the sideline.